You got to put a 3-inch leveling kit on your Ford F-150.
Obviously, take the tire off.
Yep, put it on jack stands.
You want to make sure your jack stands are at least tall enough to where you can play around with the jack underneath the whole hub assembly. Because you're going to have to lift it up to compress the springs and then drop it back down. So just make sure you got your jack stands at a safe spot all the way up.
The jack stand on the front subframe and one back there on the frame. And you can put a third one if you have one to make it more safe.
Like that. Then we take the tie rod off, the shock mount bolts, there's 2 here, and then we take the sway bar link down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 total on the bottom.
Need some PB blaster to loosen up all these bolts. But we got the tie rod bolt off and both shock bolts off.
Shock mounts, tie rod, and the sway bar. We took it off the top of the sway bar link.
All right, here.
I have baby hands.
Might need something to hold this
We're
sway
just
bar.
using a 5/16 on the top because it started
Spinning.
Taking the lower A-arm completely out of the frame.
I want to make sure if you don't have,
1/16.
if you don't already have marks of where they are, you might want to get a marker. And
Either
mark
way,
these.
you need to go get a front end alignment. So,
Yeah.
but when putting it back, it's best to try to get it the best way possible because these are slotted.
The whole stud starts to spin. Just get someone to hold some channel locks or something on the other side. You may need to pry the studs out of the slot. As you can see, that'll come that way. You use the jack to relieve these studs of some pressure so you can pull them all the way out.
Jack completed. And just like that, you'll see your lower A-arm will completely drop down. And now all we gotta do is just pry out the shock. Good to go. Now y'all take in consideration we are out in a parking lot doing this. So, but I left the top bolts or the top nuts in there. I just barely loosened them. We had the bottom frame completely loose, completely done. Now all we gotta do, loosen these 3 nuts. We'll be able to pry this down and the shock should just drop right out. So I use a pry bar, it helps out dramatically, but once you get those loosened or completely removed, I just pry it up right here. I'm holding it down. The subframe drops completely right here. And that's it. I move this, we can take it out. There's a hole back here in your frame. And if you've got a good pry bar like this, you can literally just stick it in the hole, lift up, and the shock comes free. So obviously he would be helping me, but once I've got this pried up, you can just pull this straight out.
You're gonna take your old leveling kit off if you had one, apply the new one. We'll show you how to do the leveling kit on. You'll align the studs, then you put the old bolts back in from the previous leveling kit. Now you're gonna align your shock back into its slot.
Yep.
And you also want to be able to align it into the A-arm. Make sure you use your new nuts to go on top to hold the strut or shock in. Once you get at least one bolt in the top, now you're gonna align your shock with your A-arm.
The bottom A-arm.
Yep.
So we put the jack under the lower A-arm, pushed in. We tighten the top bolts on the shock, and we just pushed up the lower A-arm, pried the shock in. Now we're about to line up everything. I've got one nut on the bottom of the shock. Once we get these bolts in on the lower A-arm, we'll tighten everything up.
I forgot to record, but before you put your A-arms on, you definitely want to connect your sway bar first. You want to get that done before you put A-arms because you'll get stuck and it's not fun. Other than that, you just put it all back together and put your tire back on. Looks pretty good.